I grew up in an industry full of men, and there wasn't many times that I wasn't the one and only woman in the room, especially as I grew in leadership.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today has broken through the glass ceiling of a traditionally male-dominated space to rise to the position of CEO, calling the shots at one of America's fastest-growing boxing franchises. Since making the jump from Orange Theory, she has been an influential force in the expansion of the Fight Club meets nightclub concept. With plans to expand the franchise internationally, this powerhouse executive has a sight set on a blue ocean to grow the brand and inspire a new audience to get off the couch, have fun, and get in shape. In this episode, we talk about what's next for boutiques, how are RockBox franchises getting such a fast return on their investment, and how leading with authenticity will help you dominate in the market. So please welcome the CEO of RockBox, April Fisk, to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. So April, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been quite a while since we spoke, actually. And in fact, last time we spoke, you were considering doing a podcast of your own. Did you ever decide to do that?
It is definitely on the back burner, but it will be coming someday.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So how's things been? Like last time we spoke, you were with the guys at Orange Theory. I think it was pre or the pandemic. So what's the last 12 months been like for you then?
Yeah, the last 12 months has been a roller coaster ride, I would say. I remember when we spoke last, I was sitting in my living room, unemployed. After COVID had hit, and we were just chatting. I was asking you some advice on podcasting, which is fun. So I love being able to talk to people in my network that I've met over the years. So I appreciate you and think your podcast is great. The last 12 months, like I said, been a little bit challenging. I left Orange Theory right before COVID, or right when COVID hit. And, I spent about 4 months trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I was talking to a lot of people. I thought for sure I'd get out of the fitness industry. That lasted about 2 weeks. And then I realized there's no way of getting out now because I loved it too much. Talking with a lot of different companies. And then actually RockBox Fitness contacted me, kind of fell in my lap. I was talking to them as well as a few other people with regards to an executive position. And so I started interviewing with all of them. And from day one with RockBox, they just hit me with authenticity. I really went through this journey of everybody tells you who you should be as a leader and how you should be. And they always told me I should be meaner. I should push people harder. And I need to get a little bit more of that kind of aggressive leadership style. And I had a hard time with it, and I didn't think that was me. So I thought maybe I shouldn't be in leadership in the normal format of leadership. But then I met the group from RockBox, and I met their executive team, and was just instantly intrigued because they led with authenticity. They led with, this is who you are. We meet you where you're at. And they were building a company, and it brought me back to how I got into the fitness industry. Got really excited about it. So we had a bit of a 4-month courting period. And at the end of the day, I became the president of RockBox in September. And then recently, I think 3 months ago, got appointed as the CEO. So I'm really excited to be here. And I think, as you look at your career and the acceleration and where you go, I couldn't be more thrilled or blessed to be where I'm at today.
Yeah. The comments you make about leadership are quite interesting. It's something that we talk about a fair bit on the podcast, and so you like many people we talk about, you came into the industry with a pretty basic role, and you've progressed to where you are now, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
In terms of, when you mentioned that you got some advice, and I know you had some fantastic mentors, but how do you sort of take when you look and I suppose follow and study people that I guess you kind of look up to within the career, and then sort of take that on as yourself, and sort of form your own view of how you should do things, and but at the same time getting that balance of of doing it in the right way, but also sort of allowing yourself to sort of come out in that as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question. But I would say through my career, I really did sit back and watch while I was doing it. So I was the sixth employee at Snap Fitness. There was only six of us. We had to work hard. We kept growing that business. And when I left there, we had over 1,500 locations. And so I saw the growth and what had to happen to get there. And then going to Orange Theory, I went into an established brand that was quite successful. And so it was a different experience for me. And what I chose to do, maybe not by choice, but just by habit, I watched what was going on around me. And I really took the things that I said, I want to be like that as a leader, or quite frankly, I don't want to be like that as a leader. The things that helped me motivate me to be successful are the things that I wanted to exude to other people so that they could be successful. So, I get asked a lot, like, who are your mentors? And I'm not sure that I can, mentorship comes in so many different forms that I had a lot of people around me that I learned from by being available and being there. Peter Taunton opened Snap Fitness, went to Lift Brands, and I was there from the beginning. So I can't say that he didn't impact me a great deal and taught me a lot about franchising, and honestly taught me a lot about just being gritty, just getting the job done, being a shrewd negotiator, and having a culture of fun. And that's kind of, you have to make your own decisions on who you want to be. And I did struggle with that for a bit. I did struggle with, as a woman in leadership, sometimes you're taken differently than maybe a man would be taken, or even other women. And so oftentimes people put that into you to say, to really be successful and to get people to do what you want them to do, you have to be this way, or you have to be this way. But I really had to do a lot of self-reflection, self-care, self-assessment on what's most important. And I know I'm my happiest, and I believe everyone's their happiest when you just get to be authentically yourself. And then you find those areas of growth that you need and development, and you spend the time that you need to do. You spend that time that you need growth in those areas. So that's a little bit of that. I also think, we oftentimes put people in positions that it's not their strong suit. 30% of their job maybe is something they're really, really skilled at, and then 70% is something that they need to work on. And I think that's tough, and there has been times in my career, because I got put into different positions along the way just to fill gaps, and I wasn't good at all of them. But I think as you grow in a company, sometimes that happens more often than not. But I think that provided me an opportunity to learn a lot about the business along the way.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. There's always, we've all got strengths, and I think it's probably a trait maybe of more men than women to sort of think, well, actually we could do everything, whereas I think women sort of understand where where their strengths are and where they need to build people around themselves. And we've interviewed quite a few ladies that are in very successful positions recently, and I definitely notice a difference in terms of the things that are important to them compared to some of the conversations that you have with the men. And in some ways, I suppose, in some ways, I think they're better in a lot of things than what men are as well. And it's surprising that there's not more women in those positions. Men just, I guess in some cases, men, if you look even in the world, men are the ones that go to war and create the problems, and the women are very peaceful generally and don't do it. So as a woman, I suppose what have you learned, because you've got to a great position, and what lessons could you share with other females that want to sort of step up and probably to do something similar to what you've done?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a sensitive topic, right? Because I grew up in an industry full of men, and there wasn't many times that I wasn't the one and only woman in the room, especially as I grew in leadership. And I was blessed with working with wonderful men. I know not all women can say that, but I really did have great people around me that I never felt belittled. And there's been times, believe me, that I know that I'm the woman in the room, and they want to make sure they know that I know that I'm the only woman in the room. But again, I think it's authentically yourself, right? I don't try to be like them. I want to learn from them, because there's a lot of things that we as women need to do better too, and I've learned a lot of my grittiness from the men that I've worked with, and just how to get things done and do it sort of pragmatically, oftentimes too. But I just think it's about surrounding yourself with good people, whether men and women, and taking all the things that you like about certain people and developing your own style and making sure people used to tell me I'm too much a goofball to lead, because they say that teams take on the personality of their leader. And that I was like, oh, that's kind of a scary thought. I used to coach volleyball, and my teams were a bit crazy, but you know what? They worked hard. Mm-hmm. They had a lot of fun. And I think that's okay. But it took me a bit to get there. And that took me surrounding myself with really great people, both men and women, to say to me, April, it's okay. It's okay to be you. Just be you and work hard. I think I was born with this nature of, you just work hard. You just show up every day and you work hard. Mm. So I think the advice is surrounding yourself with good people, and don't let people intimidate you into believing you can't be something that you want to be. You just got to chase it.
So the boutique sector that you're in now, or have been in recently, I from what I've seen, and I may not be correct, but it seems to lead more female than male. I don't know if that's generally correct in your experience.
Absolutely. I think most boutiques do. And there's a lot of reasons you could say behind that. But we definitely are about 70% more women as members. And honestly, our ownership is starting to get that way as well, which is a really interesting thing that's happening. Now, they have great husbands supporting them as well, but they're the ones that are sort of contacting us and starting the journey.
Yeah, and I had a conversation yesterday about this kind of subject, and so we were talking about Instagram as an example, and there was a post, a sort of industry friend that we know. She did a post, and it was a little example about she was showing how on upper body day it's all difficult, and she was showing how she almost like they hate upper body day, but then when it was leg day, they were sort of jumping around and looking forward to it. Kind of that was a video, a very small one, but quite an interesting message. So because for guys, it's the opposite. Guys, it's chest and biceps, and they don't think about the lower body. And although it was a very slight detail, it kind of got me thinking, if you're creating a business, particularly like a boutique fitness business, and a guy's trying to think about the design and the concept and everything, I suppose it's almost like there's some obvious things that we just wouldn't pick up on, that if you're not a woman, it's very obvious, you do this instead of that. So I guess I was just curious in thinking about this interview. Do you think that if you are creating a business, particularly for females, that you're going to have a good advantage if the team is made up from the people that really understand who the client is? And I guess even more so in a boutique compared to a regular club where there's quite a mix of people and it's not quite as personal. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's all barriers of our own beliefs, right? I cannot stand upper body day. And so when you said that, I was laughing. We had it yesterday and I can almost not lift my arms today. And I don't like it, but it's because it's not my strength. And so we don't like things that we're not good at. And I'm not good at upper body day, so I don't prefer it. And then you have lower body day, and I love it because I can hammer it out, and I love cardio day because I like cardio. We don't have cardio days, but you get my point. I like doing that because I'm good at it. So I guess when you're planning, it's the same thing with men. We have someone on our staff, the first time he did a workout, he was like, I haven't done a leg workout in 2 years. And I was like, well, why not? He's like, because I just don't like to do it. So then I actually think you need both, marrying of both. Because us ladies, we do need upper body day, right? We need it even if we don't like it, we need it. And men, you need lower body day, whether you like it or not, you need lower body day. So I think it's actually a marrying of both. And I will say in our concept, and I saw this at Orange Theory too, the men that do come and participate and are members, they are so engaged in their membership. These men are men who want to achieve something, and they have a goal in mind, because we lead with that. We lead with, why are you here? What can we help you achieve today? Not just come do the workout with us. We want them to have results. So the men who are engaged, I mean, we have men stories that have lost 50, 60 pounds or 8% body fat, because the workout is quite good. And so I do think it's an interesting concept, but I do think it takes a marrying of both, and it's all breaking down our own beliefs of what we need. What we like isn't always what we need.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. I suppose as in generally in business, there's a lot more men, particularly in leadership positions, and I think you're right. Kind of having that balance of both really kind of rounds out what you've got. You get an opportunity to see things from both directions, even if you're more leaning towards females.
Yes.
We've actually, it's quite funny. We've got an office in California now, and I'm not sure whether it's because my wife was involved in it or not, but I think we've got like the majority of females, apart from Scott and myself, is all women, which is quite, I think it's great, but it does certainly change the way that you look at things if it was an all male team. I think that's for sure.
Yeah, I do think there's value in both. Like I said, I might be biased the other way, because now that I've worked with men all my life, and all of the women in my team, hopefully they'll listen to this and know I mean it in the best way, but I sometimes prefer it, but that's because that's what I know. Yeah.
So with that, one of the things that, I've been speaking to a few people recently about people coming back after the pandemic, and how well people are doing, and what sort of populations are coming back. And one of the things that seemed to be interesting for the people that have had some decent handle on research, both in Europe and in the United States, is that some of the women are slower to come back, whether that's because of other commitments with children being at home or other things. Have you seen or noticed anything about people returning, and who's returning and who isn't?
I don't know that I've noticed a trend in our studios, and we had an 84% retention rate through COVID. So our membership base didn't necessarily leave. At least the majority didn't. We offered virtual, like most concepts did. But I guess now that you asked that question, when I go to studios, there's definitely more men than there used to be. So maybe that is something. But what I find most is it's about their comfort level of what's happening in the world. And honestly, we do lead with our goals. So when you walk in, we have a conversation and say, okay, why are you here? How'd you hear about us, and why are you here? Are you here to, they'll say, I just want to lose 20 pounds. And we say, well, why? Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Well, it's summer and I really want to fit in that swimsuit. Okay, cool. Who are you excited to see you in that swimsuit? And like get down into the nitty gritty. And so we didn't lose a lot of members. So watching them come back, we get more excitement of them coming back than them scared to come back. And we didn't close the studio either. So we don't have a lot of that argument of, well, is it safe? Is it not safe? So I haven't really seen a trend, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't really look for one. And that might be a really interesting study to do with our membership base.
Yeah. How did you stay? You said you didn't lose anyone through that pandemic. Was that because your facilities didn't close, or did you transition people to a digital membership during the period?
I think it was a little bit of both. We have a really high touch membership anyway, which means we talk to them a lot, we touch them a lot, we have challenges, we're really engaged with those members, and that's what we lead with relationship. And I always say we're in the relationship business, and we're just using fitness as an avenue for that relationship. And so we did a lot of things. We had virtual workouts, we had live workouts. We did a lot of sort of drip campaigning to them during the time period, so they felt connected with us, gave them nutrition plans. So I think it was just, it's just a matter of staying connected. We all wanted to stay connected. And if they felt like they were getting value from their membership, even through COVID, then they stayed. And then those that didn't feel like they were getting that value, then those were the ones that maybe didn't stay with us. So we still lost, but 84% is a pretty good retention rate during that time period.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
What's your views on digital for a business like yourself, and how do you is it a revenue generator, or could it be a revenue generator, or is it just something now that people expect that if you have a bricks and mortar facility that you're going to have to provide some form of digital offering as part of the your package?
Yeah, COVID made that definitely an interesting play, right? Because right when it hit, there's a lot of concepts that gave their workout to their members for free, for good reason. But then when we started to pull back and open back up, members kind of still expected that a little bit. But I think most concepts have pulled away from it. So yes, I think there's a definite revenue opportunity, maybe not with your members inside your studio, but with all the other people now that we can touch that aren't necessarily members, but we can get them on board with RockBox, and knowing that, maybe they're not comfortable coming back into the studio. How can we offer them that same experience and the same value in their home? And so I think that moving forward, we're all going to have a dual play in that. We're going to have in studio, we're going to have at home or remote, so that you're reaching everybody wherever they're at. And that's one of our taglines. We want to meet you where you're at RockBox. And so we think about those things. How do we do that? Right? Maybe they're not comfortable coming back in yet, or maybe it is a mom who really wants to, but her kids are still home. Or maybe she lost her job and literally can't afford it. And so how can we give her an affordable option? So I definitely think that there's a play on it. I think that, again, if we remember our purpose, and our purpose is to impact the most people that we can, to make them have or help them have a healthier life in general, then our job is to make sure we can get to everybody that we can. And I think some of that is through virtual.
How does that work when you have franchisees? Because I guess it's something that's relatively new in the fitness space, where I suppose it's like, well, who makes the money from that? Do the franchisees sort of accept that, okay, well, we need to support that because it's great for the brand, or is that something that people are still trying to navigate through at the moment?
I think most are still trying to navigate through it at the moment, but I would say we really do always try to do right by the franchisee. And being in franchising for as long as I have, that's a slippery slope. You have to run a business and be successful as a business. So if you're launching a digital program, there's cost involved, right? So you have to make that money back, and hopefully some revenue on top of it, because then you can keep building the brand recognition, which is another huge component of that. But I think there's both. I think if we're offering it to our membership, there should be some revenue that goes back into your studios, into your franchisees, as well as the franchisor. I think that there's a happy mix of both, so that you can keep the end goal is to build as much knowledge about your brand as you possibly can. So with that in mind, whatever avenue gets you there, and if that's getting the franchisees involved so that they can make a little bit revenue on that, and they can pour more value into their membership, right? So they can get more members interested, more people interested, because there's so much more value to be able to offer. So we're in the middle of those things right now and deciding where to go with it, but I'm really excited about it. We've invested in our remote. We're calling it RockBox Remote. We've invested in that and are excited to move forward in probably the next 30 to 60 days.
You've been involved in the development and expansion of boutique fitness from when you was at Orange Theory, and probably seen a huge amount of growth there. How would you describe the differences in that particular sector pre-pandemic and where we are now? Is there any sort of differences that you see? I know in a lot of places the class sizes now need to be smaller. Is anything changed in terms of the offering and the potential of that market? What sort of changes or differences, if any, do you see?
Yeah, we did have to adjust the workout a bit, right? Because we had to decrease class sizes, but now almost all of our studios are getting back to at least half to full capacity. But in that, we've adjusted some of the workouts. So it depends on, we've got something called rows of 4. Some studios can do it like we have structured it, and some have to adjust it because they can't change stations. So they have to sit at one station instead of moving stations. So we've just adjusted it. We prescribe all of our workouts. So we give our trainers the workout for the day. and we let them know what they need to, what the RockBox workout for that day is and what the focus is. And then if they need to make an adjustment inside the studio, we do that. We had studios build in their parking lots, build a fence around, and did work at San Diego. We have a studio in Pacific Beach, and they built literally a workout in the parking lot, and they brought all their equipment outside. And that's kind of the beauty of our business model, because we don't have big pieces of equipment. So we could take it almost all outside, and she was running a RockBox workout in her parking lot, and San Diego was beautiful. So why not? So we've had to make some adjustments along the way, but I think our model, and the reason why it sustained through COVID without closing and with that membership, is that it is quite simple and it's adjustable, right? So our model hasn't changed. What we see is that more people are interested in getting back into the studio, whether it's that they were sitting and didn't work out for 12 months, or maybe it's because they're sick of working out by themselves and they're looking for some other route to do that.
I was at Cybec last week. Got to speak to a lot of different people, and I guess it was the first opportunity to go out and see what was happening in the industry. And one of the things that did stand out quite a lot is the challenge of getting access to trainers. A lot of the personal trainers have set up on their own, and there just seemed to be a real shortage of good people. Is that something you've seen? And if so, do you think that's just a time thing and it will come back, or that, because your business is heavily reliant on good quality trainers, isn't it? For the experience.
Yeah, well, it's not that we're out of COVID, but right when everything started to pick back up, we definitely needed trainers in our studios, and we were having a hard time filling positions. But what we're seeing now actually is people contacting us, and a lot of them are from other brands. And we're trying to evaluate that to determine the whys behind it. Some of them, I think, when you're in one space for a long period of time, and let's say you've been a trainer at another boutique fitness for 8 years, and all of a sudden you don't have a job anymore because COVID hit, right? And they had to let everybody go. Now is an opportunity for them to say, you know what, maybe I should do something different. And so now we actually have a lot of people contacting us from other types of boutique fitness or personal trainers that did have something on their own that are looking for a little bit of supplemental, or they're just looking for something fun that they can put their personality into, with an interesting concept, right? We think our product differentiates us from others, so maybe that's what's attracting them, because it's a little bit different. But I do see it picking up, and I do think it's a timing thing. I think we'll see more and more of that as we keep kind of getting out of what was our then normal to our new normal.
With you've been in the franchise with Snap and Orange Theory, as I've mentioned before. With when you go and expand internationally, so going out of the US into Europe, Middle East, or even Asia, where some of those markets are not quite as mature, I can see how brands like Snap and Anytime have been very successful, because it's a relatively straightforward model in terms of the offering. But with what you're doing, the culture, the experience, the trainers, very people focused. Do you, and after probably going through this, what do you see as the challenges for groups like yourselves to be able to successfully expand internationally? And are there any, like, after seeing and going through it, are there any things that you would do differently in terms of scaling the business, which is, I guess, what you probably need to do as a franchise company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say picking your partners right from the beginning. So I think what happens a lot of times is someone gets wind of your brand and they come to you and they say, you know what, I want to buy the rights to Saudi Arabia, and I want to put this brand, and they give you, and they propose an amount of money, which usually is quite a large amount of money, right? And that brand is in that emerging phase, and they're like, yes, let's do that. Let's take that. We'll take that money and we will put this brand. But what happens is you're not quite ready. There's infrastructure that you need in place within your brand to be able to do it internationally. And I would say all the brands that I've worked for would probably mimic what I just said, is picking your country that you want to go to first wisely, and then picking your partners wisely, making sure that they understand, and then doing a ton of market research. There's different situations where if you try to translate your name in French or translate your name in Chinese, where it doesn't even mean the same thing. And so you have to think about, okay, if we're going to have our logo on the outside, what does that look like? And what does it mean to the person who walks by? And so there's these little things that sometimes, and I say this respectfully, entrepreneurs don't think about, because we see the big picture. And sometimes I do that as well. I'm like, let's just do that. That's so great. And so I think you have to come up with a plan, start with a plan of this is when we want to do that. And we need to have these foundational pieces in place in our brand before we say yes. And then we go find the partners and we really dig into what is it going to take to be successful in that country. There are times when you're going to have to adjust your brand to be successful in a different country. There are times when your color is not going to work because it's viewed as a low income brand because of the color. So there are things that you have to decide on in that market research to say, okay, knowing that we'd have to make these changes, are we willing to sacrifice some of those things about our brand to put this into that country? And I think we're naive to think we can just pick up our box and put it in, let's say, Sweden, and expect it to work exactly like it does here, without really researching and understanding, like, is boxing going to work in the country of Sweden? And if so, what does that look like?
Right. Are there big differences between your sort of club model, your snap model type of thing, and a RockBox, an Orange Theory, or what have you? Or is there more things similar than dissimilar?
I think it feels a lot different, but I would say most Snap Fitnesses, Anytimes, probably all gyms now are trying to kind of bleed into how to be more relational and how to have more touches. You know, when I started aging myself, I think it was 2006 in the fitness industry, we as consumers didn't really want much. We just wanted to show up and work out. And we actually probably preferred that nobody talked to us, right? We just wanted to go in, get a good workout, and we wanted to leave. And about, I don't know, maybe 2010, 11 is when you started to see that changing and consumers wanted more, they demanded more. So even through the 24-hour access model across all those brands, they had to start thinking, how can we be more group fitness? How can we at least offer it? How can we have more high touches? When we started that brand, we said you didn't even have to staff it 40 hours a week, right? Because you can go work out anytime you want, staff in your busy times, and that was it. Well, that doesn't work today. So I think the biggest differences are most boutique lead with relationship and goals, right? They really lead with that because their price point requires it. We have to have value. We would not be able to have our price point if we didn't have value to the member. And so I think that's the biggest difference is obviously price points are considerably higher. And then the value, in my opinion, is considerably higher. And I have a lot of respect for all of those fitness concepts because I think there's a place for all of them.
How big of a job and an investment is the education? Because you've got your basic customer service education, which, as you said, wasn't really a huge thing in the fitness industry if you compare it to the hotels. But now with boutiques, you kind of expect that hotel customer service experience at the same time. And on top of that, you've got this programming element, which you can't just get a trainer that's done his certification course, him or her, and put them in front of a class and teach a fantastic combat class. So how do you deal with that? Is that one of the challenges of being successful in this boutique space, would you say?
I absolutely think it is. I think people are everything to your success, and the success of your franchisees and who they are is very important. And then their ability to hire well, right? And so we spend a lot of time with our franchisees training and helping them understand the type of person that they want to hire and need to hire. Staff structure within your studio, who's in charge, who is a team, and who's responsible for the rest of those team, and trainers. So we spend a lot of time. We have a full training camp. It's actually going on this week. Full training camp every month where our head trainers are required to come and get certified. And they are certified to certify then. So they go back into the studios, and we have a facilitation guide to make sure that they get trained up. I will tell you, I think it's the hardest thing to have accountability around, because it's your product, it's your bread and butter. Mm-hmm. And if your trainers aren't doing their job and aren't exuding the RockBox way, which is what we call it, that is a direct reflection of your brand to everybody that has that experience with them. So I would say it's the hardest thing to manage. It's easy to train, but the hardest thing to manage to ensure that it's done at the level that you want it to be done. So, and then that's our job, to make sure that the owners understand how important that is. And so I spend a lot of time in studios, just because I lead with relationship. I'm a people person. I want to be on the ground with them and understand what the hurdles are. And we spend a lot of time talking about how do we make the product be what it needs to be. And it's all about energy, about showing up, and knowing that the model that we give them is a good one, and it doesn't need to be adjusted.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code DUMBBELL. That's escapefitness.com using the code DUMBBELL. That's it from me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview. I've been to a couple of events with other businesses like yourself, where I've been on those days and sort of felt the energy and come away kind of converted. And I really appreciate how powerful that is. Have you had to adapt with the fact that you can't probably travel as much now, and it's not as easy to sort of do those face-to-face and create that same sort of energy? Have you had to adapt, and are you bringing in more digital solutions to be able to achieve that?
Yeah, honestly, I've traveled more in the U.S. this last 7 months. Granted, I was international before, but I've traveled a lot. We've been out in studio, so I didn't feel the limitation of travel. Did it safely and made sure we were safe when we were in studios, but we did that. However, I will say we have implemented a few things. We now do a virtual franchisee training. So within the first 30 days that they sign their agreement, we do a virtual training with them just to set them up for success and a foundational success. And I think we wouldn't have done that had we not really shifted to this digital world. We still do training camp on site. We've done it since, I think we canceled 2 months over the last 12 months. But we have full groups come in the last week of every month, and we still do on-site training camps. So I think that's a business decision that we all have to make on what's most valuable. But we also send staff out into studio, try to have someone there, in studio once a week, a couple different people once a week, not at one studio, but traveling around so that we're always hitting different studios. But I think it's just a decision that we have to make. We have power calls. So we have our franchisees on calls bi-weekly with a group that's similar to them, other franchisees. And then we do an all hands meeting, which is virtual. But we're having our in-person summit again this year in October, and we're really excited because you can't replace it. I've been on a lot of trainings about how do you connect through Zoom? How do you have that connection? And I'm like, I don't want that connection. I would rather do it in person. But I think we're getting back to it. And, we've had to make a few adjustments, which I think have been positive and will impact us in a positive way moving forward. And we won't change back. But we've also tried to maintain the ability to really connect with people in person as well.
Have you been considering international expansion and outside of the US, and has that been shaped in any way with the pandemic?
Yes, we have considered it. We talk about it a lot, and it's quite funny. Our executive team, they're like, April, are we ready? And I'm always the one that's like, slow down. Let's get our foundation right. We have 31 studios open as of this week. And we do want to make sure that foundation is right. And I think we're very close. We have some plans, and yes, COVID kind of slowed that down, I think, a bit. But we have some goals that we want to hit before we even consider it. It is more complicated now because of COVID. and you think about the travel, you think about the relationships. I think it can still be done, but maybe I have a little bit of, because of the experience, I might be slower to do it than most because I want to do it right. I want to do it right from day one. I don't want to jump into it before we're ready, but we have a lot of people knocking on our door, franchisees already that we have in our system that are like fighting for the first international location. So that's a fun thing to do. But I would hope in the next, 1 to 2 years that we'll have our first somewhere internationally.
It's difficult really, because I suppose when you like you say, you have someone in a great country and they're prepared to write a big check, and it's difficult to sort of say, well, no.
Yes.
But at the same time, I guess, doing it yourself, and we've been doing international business for many years. You also understand that, what you're getting yourselves into, and that trying to balance those two things are very difficult. And then to be able to, and also timing, it's like, well, yeah. Boxing is, this kind of boxing theme seems to be gaining momentum now, and it's like, well, look, we don't want to miss out on a great opportunity, a great country, and then someone else comes and does it. So it's not an easy one, is it?
No, it's not. And you know what, when the timing is right, I think we'll know it, and I think it'll be time to do it. And boxing is probably bigger internationally than it is here, although it's quite big here as well. But sometimes you look at these other countries and you're walking around, and on the TVs, that's all that's on the TVs, where I think it's been, a little bit over the last few years that you've started to get more mainstream kind of here in the US. So we're really excited about the growth. And, our goal, the founder's goal from day one with us was, we want to make boxing accessible to everybody. Because sometimes boxing seems like, oh, I'm like, first of all, I never want to get hit in the face, and I don't want to hit anybody else in the face. So why would I box? And that was one of my struggles with actually coming into the brand. I was like, I've never boxed before. I don't know that I can lead it. But I'll tell you, I started in September, and I'm so much more confident now. And I'm not great. I would never hit anybody, but I at least have the form down, and it has really changed kind of the structure of what I can do and my strength. And that's through just a 50-minute workout. So I think boxing is on its way. I think it's definitely, we're going to see more and more of it. We obviously know of a few different brands now that I've put it into their portfolios, and that's okay. I think there's enough space for all of us.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that. What's your thoughts on Rumble? That was an interesting brand, a lot of sort of celebrities around that. And yeah. I guess in some ways it's probably going to shine a bit of a spotlight on that as we've seen the sort of Orange Theory style being copied, and Barry's Boot Camp. Do you think that the boxing is probably going to be the next thing that starts gaining momentum within the industry?
I do think so. I think there's a lot of conversation about it. Rumble's a great brand. I saw them before, quite a long time ago. It's a great brand. I don't know if I'm unique in this, but I've always said, I really do believe there's room for all of us. What's the stat now? It's like 60% of America is obese. Is that, I hope that I got that. Yeah, I hope I got that stat right. But that tells me, and they say only, I think 20 to 30% have a gym membership. So there is so much room. And I think the more fitness that we have, the more awareness is out there for fitness and for concepts and for somewhere that this person can go, get healthier. So I've always said that. I don't talk much about our competition, because I think we should just be great at what we do. And we have to look at our competition and be aware, I think, but we also, there's that learning that has to happen. But I think there's room for all of us. I think there's a lot of great concepts out there, and they've proven to be successful, right? So I think you have to find your model, you have to stick to it, and be resilient in what you're doing, and innovate. If you don't innovate and you try to just be the same that you were from day one, that's not going to work either.
Yeah, I was speaking to Victor Brick a few weeks ago on the podcast, and he was talking about Planet Fitness and their pizza ideas and how they're, people sort of don't fully understand what they're doing or who they're going after. But it was quite clever, because he talked about the blue ocean, and it was really doing exactly what you said. It's like, look, there's all these people that don't work out at the moment. That's who we're going after, and I suppose in the boutique market, then, in terms of what you're doing, as well as having a concept, are you sort of looking at a particular demographic to say, well, look, there's a lot of white space here. If we can provide fun, entertainment, and fitness, for example, that is what we're going after, as opposed to sort of saying, well, look, we're going after, what these guys are doing.
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely. I would say there are other concepts that go after that same type of person that we do. And I would say most boutique fitness is kind of going after that same, right? Like I said before, we really do try to say we want to meet you where you're at. So, we don't want that. We want to be inclusive. We don't want them to feel like they have to look a certain way, feel a certain way. We don't have mirrors in our studios on purpose, because we want it to be about how they feel, not necessarily how they look. We feel like the look comes with how you feel, right? So if you're feeling great, you're going to end up looking great. And so we've intentionally left mirrors out. And so we're looking for those people who really do want change and want a community to have that change with. Sometimes it sounds like idealistic, but that's really what we want to do. We're gritty, authentic. And I think that there's enough space for everyone. I love that Planet does that. I think it's kind of funny, but I think in like the best way. And now we're talking about it on a podcast and they've done what they wanted to do. And so I think it's great. And I do think there's room for all of us. I really do. And all of our goals should be to impact the most people that we can, to create a healthy space, like a healthy world for us. And there's enough people for all of us.
It's clearly still a competitive space, and people are fighting for the pound or the dollar or the euro or whatever. What in your experience now, being, I suppose, meeting a lot of business owners and sort of small startups, entrepreneurs, that kind of thing. What do you think is required to be successful, or what have you seen have been some of the traits in the people that have just done extremely well compared to the ones that have not quite got there?
I think it's all about people and leadership. So I would say the studios that are most successful, not just in RockBox, this is in general that I've worked with, the studios that are most successful are the ones that know how to put a strong team together, and they know how to lead that team. So they know how to empower people to be great at what they do. They're not the people who walk in and say, do this, 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 and this. They're the people that understand that they need to empower the people who are working in that studio every day to feel like they have ownership in the success of the studio, and that it's well received, right? And that they get accolades for that. And I really, truly believe that's what it is. Also, having an understanding of how to run a business. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. Sometimes you're not going to have a strong month every single month. So it's those people who understand how to weather that and how to plan accordingly. But I really, truly, I think boutique is about people. It's about relationship equity. And so the owners who come in and understand relationship equity within their top leaders in their studio, and then those leaders understand relationship equity in the people that report to them. And then everybody understands what that means to the memberships as well. Because I don't believe that members most of the time don't quit a membership. I mean, they quit a membership, they don't quit a relationship. Unless they have a health problem, or they're literally moving, or they lost their job and they absolutely can't afford it. I just don't think people do. I think if they feel connected, and we've proven it, if they feel connected, they don't leave. And so I think it's about the success comes from a knowledge of how to run a business and weather a business, and have the means to do that resource-wise. And then they understand relationship equity. They just understand that it's the most important thing that you can do to actually be successful.
There's a number of different models out, and I know if you're in a big city, whether you're in a New York, London, wherever, LA, they're slightly different in terms of the pricing and rents and stuff. But generally, what is what is the sweet spot in terms of the investment to set up and be ready to open for a sort of similar boutique franchise to what you guys have got?
Yeah, I mean, obviously all concepts are a bit different. We don't have a lot of big equipment in our studios. And so that allows us to be right in that $500,000 mark. That's all in. That's literally all in. So I think that's what makes our concept compelling, because it's not the initial investment that some of these other boutique studios have. Once you put big equipment in, that starts to increase that number quite a bit. And it's a quick turnaround. I'm telling you, and you're in the industry, people want fitness. They want it. And, even though COVID hit, we have had a bigger 3 months than we've had in the last 2 years. So we started franchising 2 years ago. In the last 3 months, we have grown by 30% in net revenue at our studios every single month, which is amazing because nobody quite knew what was going to happen. But we really, really worked hard with our franchisees, and our franchisees showed up and they just poured into the members, and they just built this amazing community that now members are bringing their friends, and we have a great, kind of referral process. So I think it's a great investment. And I think there's a lot out there. I'm not that person that's going to say we're the only good ones. But I think you have to find what you're passionate about. You have to find what excites you. And for us, we lead with our values, and our values are everywhere. And it's the acronym FASTER. It means fun, accountable, service, trust, energy, and results. I almost forgot results. And we really do lead with that. And so as a franchisee, you got to find a company that you believe in their purpose, you believe in their values, and align with them and run with them. Because if you align with their values, it'll be fun, even in the hard times. I
think your concept's quite unique because of, you've not got really a lot of expensive machinery in there, which must, I suppose, make it appealing. It's almost something that maybe even a trainer can sort of get to that level, as opposed to it being $1 million, for example, which is quite a stretch for somebody to be able to sort of raise that sort of money. So I can see the appeal, and I'm sure there are out there, but I don't think there's too many that fit into that category. If you do make that investment, what's typical from a business perspective? How, on average, how long is it taking people to be breaking even with that kind of model?
Yeah, most of our studios, when they open at break even, because we have a pre-launch process, right? That doesn't mean they've made all their money back.
No.
But they're breaking even and they're deciding how to make their money back. Yeah, but you're going to go, 3 to 5 years total, your full ROI. And that really depends too. We have studios that hit it so much quicker based off of how they open, based off of their rent. We range rent from like $5,000 to, I think we have one at $16,000. So, it's really different depending on what market you're in.
Yeah. And do you see people normally taking on one studio, and even I suppose not just with RockBox, but in the market? Do you see people sort of having one studio and that sort of keeping them happy, or do you normally see people sort of on average having 3 to 5? What's the common appetite for sort of number of units?
Yeah, we encourage, and I would say most franchisors would do this. We encourage 3 to 5. It depends on your purpose for opening, right? If you're looking at a long-term investment and you want to build a portfolio so that you can sell it at a multiple, getting 3 to 5 open is a really, really smart idea, or more, because obviously the more you have, you've got volume, you've got scale, all of that. And so, but we have some people who come in, they say, I just want to make a little extra money, right? So they may just do one. Typically when they do one and it's successful, they're like, yeah, but what would it look like if I did 2? And so we have a lot of that. We have a lot of people, and most of our franchisees, I don't remember the percentage, but most are multi-unit. Either they purchased multi-unit when they started, or they've since opened a second location. So I believe that we will be full of multi-unit operators. We've just launched our area developer program, just announced it a month ago. So we're really excited about finding, a few really great partners that want to be a little bit on the larger scale and partner with us to develop an area. And that's a great investment as well. So again, I think it's about your purpose. It's about what goals are you looking for and personally, and that's how you decide whether you do 1 or you do 3 or you do 10.
Yeah. How are you seeing the market in terms of being able to raise money to do this? Is there money around at the moment? Is it a bit more difficult than what it was? What's the sort of confidence in the fitness sector? How are you seeing that?
Yeah, we're not actually finding too many issues with that. And what's happened is people, because of everything that happened, whether they lost jobs or they thought they might lose it and they didn't lose it, they realized that working for other people is a risk. I mean, when something like it happens, all of a sudden your life can be, mine was, right? All of a sudden your life can change. And so we see a lot of people going to the 401ks and saying, you know what, I'm not sure I trust what's happening with it. So I'd rather invest it in something. And if it's something that can prepare my family for the future, I'll do that. Some people, we're having a lot of success with people who own real estate already and, who have a good, a lot of assets that we can look at, liquid assets. So we're not finding too many issues with that. The only time we do is when they come in and, they don't have a lot of cash on hand. Obviously, I think the banks are a little bit more sensitive to what that looks like now. And they're really looking at your liquid assets. So it hasn't been too bad for us. We went through a period, obviously, where fitness hit, COVID hit fitness hard. We all know that. And we went through a period where we had to reconvince people that it was a good space to be in and that it was a sustainable space to be in because of what happened. And, the word on the street being every fitness studio is closed. All of them are shutting down. Of course, people are going to be leery to buy into that. So we did have to go through a time period, but I got to tell you now, we have more leads than we've ever had. People are coming out and they're trying to find what they want to invest in. And so, and I think the fitness space actually got a lot of press during COVID, probably more than we've gotten for a long time. So it brought all this awareness, and news stations were doing specials and features inside different studios. And it really brought an awareness that I think the fitness space needed and hasn't had for a long time.
I think I've never really gone back and thought about that until you've said it. But I think you're right. Everything from gyms being forced to close and people wanting to open them and members wanting to come in. You're right. You've probably not seen as much on main TV and stuff ever, I guess.
Yeah, it was so interesting to watch it and while you're a part of it. And you think, wow, I wish we could get this much press when everything's going really, really well. But maybe that's the next cycle. Maybe now the awareness is there and we'll start to be able to do stories about the success stories of people who went back into the studio or back into the gym, wherever they needed. And I just think I'm pretty passionate about fitness and health and wellness and mental strength. And I think health and fitness we all need that in our life to kind of accumulate that healthiness across our body, right? Both mind, body, and soul. So I'm excited for what's coming. And I think we're in the space and are in the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, even a lot of what's happening in the consumer space, like with Peloton, I know you kind of have the conversations, well, are they competitors? But I suppose and Apple coming in, what it seems to be doing is that, wherever you turn, fitness is on the news somewhere. And I suppose, we should all be quite thankful for that, because if it wasn't, then, we're all individually having to try and do that. And, small businesses trying to fight for attention.
That's one positive we can take out of it all.
Yeah, I like that one. Well done on that. So in terms of RockBox, what is it? Why should someone take a RockBox franchise as opposed to saying, well, look, it's just boxing and circuit training. I can do that myself. I've got some money. Let me just sort of go and do it and not have to, pay all the franchise fees. What's the value that you guys are offering as opposed to trainers doing it themselves?
Absolutely. Well, we all know that there is a reason why there's even franchises in the world. And that is because you get economy of scale. right? So you now have the support of people say, why would I ever, like you said, why would I ever have a franchise? Two of my best friends, so like, I would never do a franchise. I'm like, well, that's not very nice because I looking after a franchise. But the reason why is they're like, well, I want to do my own thing. I want to have the power and the strength to do my own thing. And I was like, okay, so you want to spend all of your money and resources and time on testing something to see if it works. They're like, well, yeah, I want to do that. I'm like, okay. So in a year, after you've tested all of that and you've spent all of that money and it doesn't work, what then? So I think the value of a franchise is we have tested everything that we do. And I would say most brands do. And I would tell you that's one of our key, that's one of our T and faster is trust. And that's because we promise to test and trial everything before we roll out something to a franchisee. And I think that's what you get in the power of franchising. So you don't have to decide what floor you need. You don't have to go decide what lights you need. You know, ours is we say it's Fight Club meets nightclub. So we got crazy good lights. We have a mic'd up coach and great music. So we have all of that in place for you. And we've tested it to see what works and what doesn't work. The layout of the studio, like we know. And there's been people, the founders, who went through the process to figure that out, which cost them a lot of money, right? But now we have the model. And so it's about partnering with other people. And then obviously the economy of scale. So you look at the big boutiques of the world, they can open a studio right now and they can get 500 members without even saying anything other than opening soon. And that's because everybody knows about them, right? And so that's the value of a franchise. And I'm a big believer in community. I think we all want community. So one of our things is building communities amongst communities. And that is, as a franchisee, you get to come in and you get to automatically have a community with other franchisees. They're doing the same thing as you, and you get to go together towards a same goal, right? Even if you're coming in just to make a little bit of extra money, or you're really just passionate about impacting people and money's not a problem for you, maybe it's just something you want to do. But guess what? At the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. We're all impacting people's lives. So I think being able to be with other people going through the same journey as you is really important. And you can learn from others rather than having to learn it all yourself.
So what's next then, April? What's your vision for the brand? Where do you see, obviously from what you can share, but you know, what would you like to be doing over the next sort of 3 to 5 years then with RockBox?
Yeah, world domination. You know, we have a road to 100, road to 300, road to 500 plan. We want to make boxing accessible to as many people as we can. And so to do that, we have to open studios. And so we do have an aggressive plan. Like I mentioned, we just launched our AD program to be able to find partners that want to be, or people that want to be partners with us in the growth of that. But really that road to 100 open, we have, like I said, we have 31 open today, and we're really striving hard to get to that 100, and then 300, 500. And in the middle of that will be an international launch.
Excellent. So you'll be back on clocking up your air miles again then, will you?
Yes, I will. I like being diamond status, so I got to do it that way.
That's right. Yeah, I noticed that when I went flying yesterday. I'm kind of like, have I still got my? I don't know what the airlines do with those points, but I did. I had a couple of gold cards, and I thought, you know, are they going to still keep those because I've not traveled for a year?
I know. I get irritated when I don't get upgraded now because I got upgraded so often, and I was like, okay, I don't need to be upgraded every time.
Yeah. So final question, April. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is impossible and gone on to make it possible. What would be an example of escaping your own personal limits? That's a really good question. I don't think I ever pictured myself, and I've been told I shouldn't say this, but I just say it anyway. I didn't picture myself as a CEO of a company. I never had a goal to be a CEO of a company. And when Jeff Duden and I talking about this, he's the primary partner of the company. I thought, man, maybe I should have had that as a passion or a goal. And is it the right position for me if I didn't really want it, if that wasn't a goal? But what I realized was I had a goal of having a platform to impact the most people I possibly could, which is part of me wanting to do a podcast, right? But I never really believed it would happen because I always self-doubted that, am I good enough, or am I the type of leader
that could do that. And so through the process of me not having a job and really doing some self-awareness and self-care, that's the belief I overcame, that, you know what, you are good enough. And just because you didn't picture yourself running a company someday, or didn't have a goal of running a company someday, doesn't mean that you can't. And I said to somebody once, I don't know if I'll be good at this part of the job. And they said, don't ever say that. Don't ever say that, because you can be good at it if you want to be good at it. You just have to learn and then surround yourself with really great people. So I think for me, it was overcoming the belief that I couldn't be a leader the way that I would want to, and that it would be received in a way that people would get behind me and respect that leadership. So I'm excited to have arrived to where I am. Of course, it's an everyday journey. You know, I read the book Atomic Habits, and it talks about getting 1% better every day. And so I challenge our team every day. You know, if we've arrived, we probably aren't going to grow anymore. So we always have to know that we got to keep growing.
I think those, you know, that's something that probably all of us secretly question ourselves in our mind, but probably don't openly talk about it. So I'm pleased that you've sort of, you know, overcome that, and you're in the position you are today. So look, I'm really pleased for you and what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I really look forward to an invitation to your 500th club when it opens. April.
Yes, absolutely. You'll be there.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.